Hello, friends, and welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. My name is Scott Cowan, and I'm the host of the show. Each episode, I have a conversation with an interesting guest who is living in or from Washington State. These are casual conversations with real and interesting people. I think you're going to like the show. So let's jump right in with today's guest. All right, everyone, we're back from the intro that we recorded separately, and I'm awkward as always. My guest today is Don Kitch Jr. and Donna Parada Kitch, the owners of ProFormance Racing School, who, if you've been on the website, you saw we had an article about this, and now we've got them on to talk about the school, Western Washington. So Donna, Don, welcome. Who wants to say something first?
Hi, everyone. I think we'll start with Don. So I got to go first, but he's starting.
Yeah, it always ends up with me here. So, well, first of all, thank you for having us. We love to talk about what we do. We certainly enjoyed your associate being with us for the day. It was great to see her start one way at 8 in the morning and end up another person at 5 in the afternoon. So that was great fun.
So to be honest with you, I'm surprised she got there at 8. I mean, that was just the, if I'm being honest. So Don, I read your bio, and there's something about buggy wheels, which we could have fun with, but I want to know something. When was the first time officially that you raced?
Well,
on an organized, a legitimate race.
That would be the soapbox derby days when I was 9 years old.
Did you win?
No, I crashed. It was not pretty.
Was not pretty? Were you using these buggy wheels that were referenced that you bought?
No, in those days, you had to get all of the elements from the Chevrolet dealers, at least the wheels, the axles, those components. It was a program that was sponsored by the Chevrolet dealers. And so I talked my dad into entering, and we built the soapbox derby, and it was pretty for a while, and then it wasn't pretty. But that was my first drive in competition.
Okay. Let me try again. When was your first gasoline-powered official race?
That would have been in 1980.
Okay.
Here in Seattle in 1980, an amateur event.
And how did that go?
It was actually good. I mean, it certainly confirmed and validated the fact that I wanted to race cars. I loved it. I loved it.
What was the car you were driving?
It was a Datsun 240Z production-based car. It raced in D production on slicks, on racing slicks.
Okay.
Great little car. Great, highly developable. I loved it. It was an existing race car when I bought it, and worked on it all winter long to get it ready for its first outing, which was, I think, in the month of April. And I anxiously awaited my debut as a racing driver.
What was some of the takeaways from that very first time on the track? I mean, you already said you loved it and you confirmed everything, but what else? Because at that point...
Well, I knew at that point that if I wanted to continue eating, the money to feed me would not come from driving a racing car. That I knew. No, there's a seasoning that goes on, learning to deal with traffic, overtaking and being overtaken and all of that. So I went through the kind of the normal progress of, like, say, seasoning.
Okay.
As a driver. That's why you start out early on as an amateur, as a novice, so that you're kind of cutting your teeth with all people are all in the same situation.
Okay. And how long then before you turned, pro?
We raced here amateur in Seattle for about 10 years. And then we moved on to what was then and still is now the International Motorsports Association, IMSA Racing. And that was our first pro outing.
And where was that at?
Our very first professional race was in Portland, at Portland International. We decided it would be good to race our first major event on a home track.
Okay. Donna, have you ever raced competitively?
I have not raced competitively, but I have always loved going fast, and I have always loved cars. My dad liked going fast, and he liked cars, and he and I had that in common. So when I was a little girl, I just loved cars. And I saved money and I bought, Don had mentioned he was racing a 240Z. I bought a 280ZX with my dad. That was my first car. And I loved it. And my dad and I purchased that car together. And before I could take it out, I had to learn how to change the tire. That was really important back then. They didn't have roadside assistance. So you had to learn a couple things like checking the oil and changing the tire and checking the car for air, or the tires for air. And a lot of that came in handy when I started becoming pit crew for Don's race team. When Dawn was the racer, I was part of the pit crew.
So it should have been the other way around. She should have been the racer. I should have been the pit crew.
But those skills actually came in handy, because when he was racing, we've been together. Dawn and I have been together for, let's see, the business is 30 years old. We've been married 31 years. So it's been a long time. So those skills that I learned as a teenager with my dad, with car mechanics and preparation, really did come in handy. And I loved being part of the crew. So I have not raced, but I do love going fast on the track. And I have that in common with the people that come out to the race school, because 50% of them, 70% of them will never go racing, but they will come back every month and they will drive fast on a safe, professional, track. And so I have that in common with them.
Okay. So you started in 1980 and you opened the school in 94. So
Correct.
14 years. Okay. What was the motivation to open a school? I'll call it a racing school, but it's more a driving school. Maybe that's a more accurate term. What was the motivation to open? Was this about eating again?
Yeah, it pretty much came down to the point we got hungry and decided to get a real job. No, I think at some point, I think we were smart enough to realize that, there's a point where it's time to stop the driving and competition and take the relationships you've built, the reputation that you've earned, and the skills you've developed, and maybe get into academia. And that for us was the start of ProFormance.
And Don is such a great teacher. When he is racing and was racing, I mean, he was just so personable and so friendly, and able to take a big concept in racing, and break it down into little steps that after someone would talk with them, they'd want to go racing. And we realized there wasn't really an avenue for them in this area, in the Northwest, to actually be trained professionally. And he was just such a natural. I think my background was education, that we just decided, this is something that we can teach people.
Okay. What was it like starting a school? I mean, opening any business is, simple and it's easy. Nothing goes wrong. Ever. Now we add moving cars on a track and people. And so what were some of the unexpected early things for you guys that you might not have planned on?
Well, it was really kind of a learn as you go. And quite frankly, it still is. We're always exploring new and different ways to, message the skills and techniques we want people to learn and employ. I think the scary part, like any small business, is just making ends meet and how to build it. But I think for me, we were swimming in new waters and wanted to make sure that we belonged in those waters and could stay in those waters. And we obviously could. But what caught me out a bit was the demands that came with starting something new in the Puget Sound area, and having people coming to you thinking you have all of the answers, and you don't, because it was kind of OJT there in the early years. Okay.
Donna, how about you starting it? What your role in it, because you both have different roles. So anything, you said you came from the education field. Anything different that caught you off guard besides my questions?
Well, when we started the school, I was still teaching. So I
Okay.
taught sixth grade in Lake Washington School District here in Kirkland. And so I was still teaching. And with the new business, you need all kinds of things. And it was amazing how everything we needed, I had never done before, but I had to learn how to do it.
Right.
So at that time it was desktop publishing, or it could have been, like one thing we had to do was make a website. There was this thing called a website, and what is that? And so I actually took a class and learned how to make a website. And because we had some crazy quote for a website, and we couldn't afford that because we were a small business. So I'm amazed at how many different hats I had to wear, being an accountant, being a technology person, being a customer service person, while still working at my actual job as a sixth grade teacher. But it was amazing how I really liked that challenge. I didn't know how to do it, but I figured out how to do it. So it was because we had to figure out how to do it. We couldn't hire accountants or,
Right.
technology people because we were too small at that time. We were
Sure.
just starting. So I had to, and it was a challenge. And, there were times I pulled out my hair and I cried. And there were other times it was really fun. I loved the technology. When I was hired for Lake Washington School District, they were the technology school district. We were the first school district to get computers. So I love that anyway. So it was a real challenge, but there were times where Don would say, well, we need this. That didn't exist. So I had to figure out how to do that. So those were big challenges.
And now 30 years later, there are no questions, no challenges, everything,
They're just all bigger.
They're just, everything changes. So I have driven fast unprofessionally, not correctly. I think the statute of limitations is expired. I can't get in trouble for admitting that. I had a 1973 BMW 3.0 CSI that I enjoyed.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great car. I didn't know what I had when I bought it from a guy who was getting a divorce and wanted to take advantage of his ex-wife, and he sold it to me for $2,500.
Wow.
And I put it into a tree. Anyway, here's my knee-jerk reaction to opening a race driving in the Puget Sound. It rains a lot. There's a book out called The Art of Racing in the Rain, which we're going to get to. But from a business standpoint, is having a driving school in a wet climate doesn't seem like I would have. I don't know that I'd open one in Minnesota either. So my question is, did that impact? Do the elements impact the business, or do they actually add nuance to it that's helpful?
To be truthful, when we first opened, we were more seasonal because we were small, and also Don was still racing professionally. So a lot of his races were on the East Coast in January, February, March. So we were not active on the racetrack here when we started. But what we learned, or I think Don can speak to this with racing, is racing on a wet racetrack takes your skill level exponentially you grow. And I think that's what he was realizing in his racing. Then when he would race on a wet track and then have a race on a dry track, how much better he was. And as the business started to grow here in the Northwest, we needed more dates. And so that's when he incorporated, let's run events, in November, December, January, February. But he could address, how that transition came into play. But originally that was not part of our business model. Our business model was going to just be seasonal because that was the driving season back then. And that was 30 years ago. And now our driving season is 12 months a year.
Well, I think all of the skills that we're trying to, get people to buy into and develop, they come to them a lot easier in the wet than the dry, right?
Did they?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Everything we're wanting them to experience, because 9 out of 10 of us are experiential learners, right? You don't learn in a classroom; we learn by experience. So we'll give them a quick overview in the classroom, and then get them in the car and get them out there experiencing, right?
Okay.
And the experiences we want them to have related to, control inputs to the car, being a good weight manager, limiting weight transfer, oversteer skin conditions, understeer skin conditions, the car, that all comes to them a lot quicker in the wet than the dry. So teaching them into the wet, while there's obviously some risk, teaching them in the wet and then having them come back and employ those skills in the dry. So what we do, like we did this last week, we had a nasty day, and I said, you know what, let's use this wet to learn. And they had a ball. The reviews we got throughout the day and at the end of the day of how much they learned and how the comfort zone they gained in dealing with those kinds of conditions, and they transferred to street survival.
Well,
the wet is a good learning environment.
Okay. What what shuts the school down? Does snow on the track? I mean, you're not teaching people when there's snow and ice on the track, are you?
No. I mean, obviously if we've got ice or snow, that's a no-go, right?
Okay. Right.
Same thing with deep standing water. If we have heavy rains that I believe are going to end in an accumulation of deep standing water, we're going to go to plan B, whether that be some other form of exercises out there or a cancellation. But no, if it's just light, wet, surface, then we're going.
So if it's the Seattle drizzle, the gray droplets, you're good to go. Okay.
And with weather, they're always wrong. I can honestly tell you, having been out to Pacific Raceways for 30 years and answering the phone and people calling me on their way in saying, are you guys really going to be open today? And I'm like, it's dry here. Of course we're going to be open, or it could be the opposite. We could be raining and it's dry somewhere else. But I would say that at least 75% of the time, the weather is not correct, or it's not as bad. It could be worse sometimes, but we have a plan B, we have a plan C, we have a plan D. We want our clients to have fun. We want them to learn. We want them to be safe. And so we're going to base their experience on the conditions of the racetrack and making sure that they are going to, drive away with a smile on their face. And Friday, I think, was an example. We just had an event on Friday, and a lot of people wanted to cancel Thursday night because it was the first big rain. We haven't had rain for a few weeks. And I just said, go out. You've paid for the day. We have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. You'll do different things. And I got home that night and my email was flooded. I mean, I had people that said that was, quote unquote, the best experience I've had in 5 years. I don't know why 5 years, but it was 5 years. That was what he said, because they are scared, but they show up. We ask them to just trust us and believe in the process, and they drive away a better driver, having had fun. But a lot of them are always apprehensive when that forecast comes, and watching them from when they show up to when they leave, and then having the validation in my email or by phone about what fun they had. And they were so glad they actually did come out. So just getting them out on a rain day. But most people wake up disappointed when they see it's raining outside, but then they show up, they go through the program, they drive away, and they say, that was the most fun I've ever had in 5 years.
5 years. So that Friday event that you're referencing, was that for beginner drivers, or was that an intermediate or advanced day?
That day was an intermediate to advanced day of just recreational sport driving.
Okay. So these were people who have gone through
the initial programs,
and they were still apprehensive about the rain. Maybe that's where the 5 years came in. Maybe this person had been being, a hobby racer for 5 years, and this is the first time they got to go out with the wet track. Maybe, I don't know.
So you walk into a room full of people, for the morning meeting, and you immediately can feel the tension in the air. They're nervous, and you go, you know what? Here's the deal. Nobody's going out on that racetrack right now. Nobody. We're gonna take some wet asphalt, and we're going to have some fun, and we're going to learn, and we're going to develop some new skills and have some fun doing it. And then we'll see where we go from there. And there's just this big sigh of relief that they're not going to have to do what they really don't want to do, and that's go out on a racetrack and deal with the elements.
So Don mentioned the asphalt. We have a skid pad, a big piece of asphalt that we can, when it's wet, have a lot of drills. And some of the things they do on the skid pad is a power circle. And another exercise is a figure 8. And those are things with car control and learning oversteer and understeer. So when you feel the car do something, which is what we want you to have an experience of failure and then opportunity to learn what to do when you feel that. And when you're on a wet skid pad, there's nothing to hit. And you can feel that, you can have those experiences and save it. And you feel like such a champion because it's really hard. And once you get it, then when you feel that out on the racetrack, you'll know what to do.
Gotcha. Okay. I have a question. This is going to be one of those, I'm warning you, this is an odd question. So what I understand is that your program offers 2 ways of going about it. One, you can provide the vehicle that the person experiences in, or the attendee can provide their own vehicle. What's the oddest vehicle somebody's tried to bring to the track? Because I'm thinking, like, if it were me, I'd like want to pull up in a Pacer, just an old AMC Pacer, just because it'd be kind of funny.
That's a really good question, because we have actually had some very odd vehicles show up. So that is not that. Yeah, that's actually, we've had crazy cars.
I think, our teen program, we highly encourage mom and dad when the teens are going to come out and go through a clinic. We want them in whatever they spend most of their time driving. If that's an F-150 pickup truck, then if it's a Dodge Caravan, then that's what we need. Whatever the parents have them in the. So yeah, it's not uncommon to see a van out there in our teen program or a pickup truck.
Okay.
So a little bit of everything.
Is there a cutoff though, where, like, if I pulled up in my, I don't know, was it 73 Pacer? I guess maybe 1973, a Gremlin or something, early 70s car. Is there something does the vehicle have to meet a certain criteria to go out?
Well, yeah. If something comes out there that's fairly early generation, then we're going to give it a good once over. Specifically, we're interested in brakes. Brakes are nice. Brake pads, tires, obviously 2-seat seat belts. Open top vehicles require some form of rollover protection, either factory installed or aftermarket.
Okay.
But yeah, if something comes out there that hits our radar, then yeah, we're going to give it a pretty good look over before it's going to participate. But we highly encourage people, whatever their daily driver is, especially the new car buyer, because the technical nature right now of the new car so far exceeds the knowledge and understanding of the buyer. So we need to come out and learn about this thing, all of its active and passive safety systems, how they work, how you work with it, and at the same time have some fun in it, kind of putting it through its paces a little bit.
Given your market in Seattle, and I see a lot of Teslas on the road. Are you seeing Teslas show up at the track?
A bunch
of Teslas.
And is there anything noticeably different about a Tesla versus, what are the cars that you guys provide? We're a
Toyota school, we're a Toyota school. We've got a fleet of GR86s. Some people know them as the FRS.
Okay.
But the Tesla is wonderful. Why? Because it's mid-batteried. You've heard of mid-engined. Well, it's mid-batteried, right? The balance on the car is magnificent. You can do everything in that car that not to do to make it handle, and it still handles.
So
can I give you a little Tesla story that's kind of cute?
Sure.
So I handle the registration. And so I had a person register, and he wrote Tesla, but there were 3 participants. And I went, okay, so it's very common for two people to share one car and they'll both get the full experience.
Mm-hmm.
But this was one person signing up for three people and they only listed one car, Tesla. So I called him up and I said, it's, not a problem to share the Tesla. You'll both have equal experiences. We have a supercharger that you can use at lunchtime, 15 minutes away. You can supercharge and come back if you need to. And he says, no, you misunderstood. We all have Teslas. And it was three people, three Teslas. So one had a Plaid, one had a Y, and one had a Model 3. And it was a family, a husband, a wife, and a son. And it was so cute because he just wrote Tesla. And all three of them had their own. So we probably have one or two Teslas out for every 1 day high performance driving day. Every event, we at least have one. And then we may have one or two that are in our intermediate and advanced groups.
Okay. I was just curious, is that, we see more and more and more of the electric vehicles on the road everywhere. And Don, in your opinion, have you taken a Tesla out and driven it with performance intent?
At Anger, yes, I did, and I multiple times. But the first time, I couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
The overall handling characteristics of the car, you can't get it to understeer. You do everything not to do, and like I said, it's so they're wonderful. They're wonderful, and the torque is amazing. Of course, with electric, it comes off the turns really quick.
Okay.
Biggest challenge we face with the electric vehicles and what we do is you're standing there and all of a sudden there's a car. How to get there? Because you don't, and that's why I'll always warn the guys, don't turn your back on a vehicle because it's moving and you don't hear it moving, right? Okay. And they move very quickly off the line. Yep.
Okay. So next thing I'd want to kind of cover, because I think this is a really wonderful point. So in 97, you founded Team Seattle as a way to fundraise for Children's Hospital.
Right.
You've been pretty successful at that.
We're really proud of that. Yes.
Yeah. You guys have, according to your website, $6 million to Children's Hospital right now. That's pretty amazing.
Closer to 9, actually.
I think we need to update our website.
I wasn't going to say anything. Wasn't going to say.
Yeah.
So closer to $9 million raised for Children's Hospital.
Right.
Thank you for doing that. I mean, that's just awesome. Why did you start this? What was the, because you could have started a charitable thing for many, many things, but so why children's? What was the inspiration there?
Well, I mean, we're lucky to have had a healthy child, and others haven't been, and we're sensitive to that. The driving community in the Puget Sound area, the racing community, and for whatever reason has kind of taken Seattle Children's Hospital under their wing. Don and I have always kind of tried to link our racing to some form of charity, but this one was certainly the most meaningful. We met a heart patient along the way, Cammie Sutton, who's been a big part of Team Seattle Guild since its conception. And we took a look at that situation and said, you know what, here's a facility that, that has the best equipment, the best people, but to fund that facility, they need help. And we've just always believed that, the promotion and, awareness that motor racing brings, there should be a dollar sign attached to that for some worthy cause. And for us, it was kids.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, we were lucky enough to have Sienna, who's healthy and happy, but others aren't. And you spend some time in that hospital and you look at those patient rooms and you see moms and dads who are just shell shocked in the situation they find themselves in. And all they can hope is that somebody's out there with some kind of promotion that helps bring the dollars to the table that get them out of the situation they're in.
And so many kids have been touched by Seattle Children's. When I was teaching our first year of actually racing at Daytona, and raising money, I just asked my students, I said, how many of you, do you know someone that's ever been to Seattle Children's? And I was surprised at how many hands went up. But then my second question was, how many of you have been to Seattle Children's? And just as many hands stayed up. And that made me realize that, I mean, you don't have to have a serious illness, but if you did, you're at the right place. But things from tonsils to that midnight, someone has a bad, fever and it's not breaking, and how many people use it as a resource. And as a teacher back then, I realized this is a community resource that we're very lucky to have. And so many people before us have believed in the cause. And that's why we were where we were now, because of people's efforts. So we wanted to, pay it forward.
So at the time that we're recording this, it's May of 2023. What's on the horizon for Team Seattle? Is there another race coming up this year? What's kind of the horizon look like?
Well, there's a number of ways the team generates money for Children's Hospital. One of which is our upcoming June 23rd go-kart race at Pacific Grand Prix out of Pacific Raceways. That thing generated $125,000 last year in one Friday evening. Wow. 25 carts, 4 drivers per cart. The race is 2 hours long. Every driver drives 30 minutes, and every cart is a fundraising center for Seattle Children's Hospital. I think our cart last year had $10,000 or $15,000 in donations on it. $125,000 that cart race brought in, and you can't think of a better way to spend a Friday evening. There's a little bit of pizza involved in the thing when it's all said and done. So, but right now the team is racing under the name The Heart of Racing, because all of the money that we're generating goes to the Heart Center at Seattle Children's. The Heart of Racing right now is headed to Monterey this weekend, racing to Aston Martin's. And there's a fair amount of money that comes from the team that goes annually to the hospital. So the next outing for the Guild is the Heart of Racing effort at Laguna Seca. It's a weekend this weekend.
And you, Don, you'd mentioned the karting. We've been doing the karting event now for 13 years, and that came about because we are endurance racers. So when Don raced the 24 hours at Daytona or the 24 hours of Le Mans in France or the 12 hours in Sebring, he does it with a group of drivers, and it's usually 3 to 4 drivers. And they have different stints. So they'll be in the car 1 to 2 hours, and then we'll have a driver change, and then another driver will, drive his stint. And then we just rotate all day and all night long. And so we thought about it, and we thought, we have so many spectators and we have so many fans watching us do this. How can they do this? And that's how the karting event came about, because a lot of our supporters live in Seattle, and we have a karting facility out at Pacific Raceways. And this way we could do an endurance karting race. So the endurance karting race is 2 hours, 4 drivers, and each driver drives a half hour. And then they generate a little fundraising page, like a Mighty Cause page where people can make pledges. And we just thought, we'll just do this 1 year just for fun, for our, and it was so much fun. That was 13 years ago, or 13 years. And now we're still doing it. We're getting bigger and better, and we've raised a lot of money, and it's a ton of fun. So we're always just trying to pull people into racing, because Don always says, if everyone just had this experience one time, the world would be a different place, because it teaches you patience. It teaches you, how to be humble, but it also teaches you how to get along with others, how to follow rules, how to play nice with others. I mean, there's just so many lessons that racing teaches you that it's transferable to your, daily life.
Okay. So you said Aston Martin's. I kind of flashed to, like, I'm envisioning a James Bond car. It's just kind of where I wasn't, and I'm not a car person, but I wasn't aware that Aston Martins were used as race cars. Maybe that's just a really naive statement, but tell me a little bit about the car, because I'm just inherently curious now.
Well, the Astons that are racing currently in IMSA are purpose built, but they're based on a production car platform, right?
Okay.
I mean, they look somewhat like the street car, right?
Right.
But obviously they're, a purpose-built race car. It's sports car racing,
Mhm.
right? They're highly developed, but at a glance, you could somewhat see the street car there.
Mhm.
That race it Sunday, sell it Monday concept is so prevalent in sports car racing right now. So people can identify with the car. It's an Aston Martin. It's a Vantage, right?
Okay. All
But
right.
but you'd never see the car on the street, right?
Is it would it be it wouldn't be a street legal vehicle though, would it?
No.
Could it? Okay, so it's never should go on the street. is the
No,
way-
no, they never go on the street. But then when you talk true purpose built, of course, obviously Aston Martin is very involved in Formula One.
Okay.
Aston is very involved in Formula One. That's a pure purpose built Formula car.
Okay.
So no, Aston's always been in motor racing.
I mean, I think of things like, Ferrari.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I think, once again, not my expertise. So I'm happy to admit my.
But you're getting there.
Yeah, but Ferrari should be, as you said earlier before we hit record, Ferrari should be red.
Yeah.
So I'm on your website, and I got to question you on something, because I found an inaccuracy, because you corrected me. It said 6 million, you said 9. So
Right.
I got to fact check a couple things with you now. Favorite road car? What was your response?
Porsche.
Oh,
No,
I was
no.
going to say anything.
Any car that's given me to drive,
Yeah.
any free car that's given me to drive, yeah.
One that's paid for. So that still holds true. Still paid off. We're good to go. All right. But your favorite race car is a Porsche 911 GT3.
Yes, that is correct.
Correct.
Why is that?
Oh, I just think Porsche is a factory that they just never get it wrong. I've never seen them make a mistake. I've seen them make one, maybe two mistakes in my entire time with them, but they just seem to always be able to get it right.
Okay.
And I'm comfortable in the car. I can drive it fairly proficiently.
Mhm.
I've had successes in the car, so as a result, it's my favorite car. Yeah, but I think most of my career on a racetrack was in a Porsche, so it's my favorite.
Bucket list car that you've never been able to drive. What would it be?
That I've never been able to drive.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything out there that you haven't?
You've been
Well,
lucky. You've
I've
driven
been-
a lot of
I've
cars.
been really
Yeah,
lucky, man.
yeah.
There have been some people who have trusted me with their cars, so I'm very, very lucky to have driven just about you name it. I've pretty much driven it, other than certainly like a Formula One car, or whatever. Boy, so that question just triggers how lucky I've been.
Okay. Would you want to try a Formula One car just for, if you take it out for fun? I mean, not that would be, I mean,
I don't know how much fun that would be.
right. Yeah. As soon as I said that, I realized, but
I mentioned to Donna yesterday, the average person could not even launch that car without it swapping ends. I mean, it's something you have to work. By the time you're in an F1 car, you worked your way, through the lower formula. But yeah, certainly if I felt like I was qualified, I would like to drive one, because there's nothing like a purpose-built race car. It does what you tell it to do. The problem is it doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. It just knows this is what you've told it to do, and I'm doing it, and I'm doing it right now. They're real precision, right?
Yeah. All right. So this is a negative question.
Okay, here we go.
What's an overrated car in your opinion? Might be really popular. Everyone talks about it, gush, but for you, in your personal opinion, is there a car out there that you just don't quite see why it got the level of notoriety?
I gotta be politically correct.
I know. That's why I understand.
We're kind of, whatever car we are, conducting or facilitating a program, that's the best car ever.
Sure.
Not knowing which car that's going to be next week, I got to be really careful about what I say here.
But let me rephrase it. And for you, like you've driven a car, and let's just say arbitrarily, let's just say it's a Porsche 911. because you just said you love them. But let's say you got behind the wheel of one and you went, yeah, this just doesn't feel right for me. I'm not asking. So like, is there a car out there that everyone's talked about that they go and, could be a Ford F-150 pickup truck? I'm not asking you to be disparaging. I'm asking, for you as a driver, you're like, yeah, nice car, just not for me.
Gosh,
Boy,
Don loves cars.
I know, but I mean,
I'm just trying to think. I've never really heard you get out of a car. I mean, cars have certain capabilities and characteristics, but you learned, I think, because in racing you have to race what you have, so you adapt to the car.
Okay.
And so you're always like, there's near perfect cars, but there's always something.
I think if you get in the car with the right expectation of what it's going to do and what it can't do, then you mold yourself to it and don't expect something it can't do. Right.
But doesn't that come from being a highly skilled, well-trained professional of the craft?
Without a doubt. I was never a real big car guy. I didn't really like the big sedans.
Okay.
I didn't like the ergonomics of them. I didn't like your position, your seating position in them. They were just big pigs. But they've transitioned a lot. I mean, if you look at the American muscle car, what they've become now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a Porsche Cayman or some of the GM cars, some of the Camaro on the right hands. I mean, they can run circles around a 911.
Really?
The development has been incredible. So early on for me, I wasn't really a big Mustang, big Camaro ground pounder kind of guy.
Okay.
Boy, they've certainly become sophisticated instruments now. But now you get in and you don't ask the thing to do something you know it's not going to do, and then you don't become frustrated. You get in, you just know this is not going to do this, so don't bother asking. And if you ask it to do it, it's going to struggle trying to do it, and then you're going to struggle.
So, of the new generation of American muscle cars, the Camaro, the Challenger, the Charger.
Don't forget the Corvette.
I was going to separate that one out into its own little thing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Have you driven the new Dodges?
A bit. I'm not a big Dodge guy.
But that's a big car compared to
car. It's real nose heavy. I'm not. I mean, they're get it pointed straight, come to throttle, and whoa, we're going somewhere. I guess. They're not what I consider to be really, really sophisticated in the turns.
Okay.
But they're very exciting straight line.
Okay, so there you go. So that's just not your flavor of ice cream.
Not my flavor. I'm sure they're wonderful.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that before somebody calls and says, "No, I heard you on this podcast."
No, I'm not that. But see, that's the thing. That's not your style. That's not a car for your style. All right.
I didn't know how to drive that car.
So you mentioned a Corvette.
Yep.
What do you think of these new Corvette? I saw one. I didn't even recognize. I was like, what was that?
I think they're absolutely wonderful. I think the Corvette program, race-wise, worldwide, the GM Corvette program, they've learned so much in their racing program that have transferred to their street car, that race at Sunday, Solid Monday, race at Sunday, Development Monday. Amazing piece of equipment. The technology is amazing. Their overall handling, and I think the car from a price point are absolutely amazing. Somebody gave me a chance to drive one at Daytona one time, just on the track, his street car. He had just gotten it, and Donna and Sienna were with me, and so Sienna wanted to go for a ride, and I thought, wonderful piece of car, just got it, and but I thought a wonderful opportunity to take it for a ride because he wanted to hear it at full song up on the banking at Daytona. So about 2 weeks later, because the car just kept tempting me to go faster and faster and faster. About 2 weeks later, Don and I were sitting here in the office, and I could hear something on her screen here, and I, what's she looking at? And he had sent her video of Sienna and I riding in this car. And it just kept luring us to go faster and faster and faster. And we're looking at the needles going up and up and up. It's just really, Don, with our daughter, no helmets, the back straight at Daytona, 140 miles an hour. Really? But it wasn't my fault. It just told me to do it.
It wasn't my fault.
And it did it so
easily.
effortlessly.
It's just a wonderful piece of equipment, and such confidence just pours off of it.
They're a very interesting looking vehicle.
Yeah, they look so cool. Yeah. They always have. Have you ever seen a bad looking Corvette?
This was a few years that I wasn't a big fan of. And some haven't aged well. How's that? Like the early 80s Corvettes don't look particularly nostalgic to me.
Maybe. But the new ones are just...
Oh, the new ones are amazing. And, you know, the old 50s ones are like, when you see somebody lucky enough to be driving a 50s Corvette on the road, you're like...
Yeah. The year at Daytona that we had Dale Earnhardt with us when he and Lily were in the Corvette, that was a very special 24. Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful car.
So there was a book that I think anybody that knows you knows that was referencing The Art of Racing in the Rain. What don't we know about that? Is there anything about that story we don't know? How did it come about? I'm reading the book right now.
Well, you're reading it now?
I'm reading it now. It's an enjoyable book.
Does it make you cry yet?
Hasn't made me cry yet. Getting close. I can tell it will. Yeah, Donna told me to watch the movie, and so I didn't listen to her. I decided to read the book.
Good.
But definitely watch the movie.
No, I will.
Because we had some liberties to be able to do some extra things in the movie that are not in the book that actually, I mean, I think really it added. Usually, you know, when they change the story a little bit, you know, dedicated readers are not happy, but I actually think the changes that were made in the movie were good.
Okay.
The title of the book is based on a paper that we wrote 25 years ago. Mental and physical disciplines for drivers to become proficient racing in the rain. And the title of the paper was The Art of Racing in the Rain. We use it as a handout in our competition school when we come to the section on proficient driving a car on the racetrack in the rain. And title of the paper, The Art of Racing in the Rain. Garth Stein, the author of the book, comes to the school, job shadows for a couple of years, promptly announces he's going to write a book, titling it The Art of Racing in the Rain, sends us a manuscript. We, browse through it really quick, give him the green light, away he goes. Portions of it are true. A lot of it is about our family. A lot of it is about, obviously the dog on the book was one of our early generation Goldens. True story. A good portion of it is a true story. It's not really about racing. It's about life and challenges and injustice and justice in the end. Sad in the middle, yes, but everybody gets what they want in the end. Everybody wins in the end, especially Enzo, right? Because Enzo got to be what he wanted to be, right? For a guy that did not earn his living in motor racing, I thought Garth did a wonderful job of writing the end of the book. It ended quite beautifully. Patrick Dempsey, who we were spending some time with in those days, bought the rights to the book, and then produced the movie. So the paper came first, then the book, then the movie.
Okay.
And it took like 20 years. It seemed like it took like 20 years from story to book to movie, and during that time, I would say at least 5 different studios tried to make it into a movie. And they would contact us and want to embed themselves in our racing team when we would go to different races like Daytona or Laguna Seca in California or Sebring. So we would have a director or producer with us for a weekend, and then we wouldn't hear from them. And then like 2 years later, another studio would call, because the story had been sold to a new studio, and then we'd start the process all over again, and they would embed themselves. And so this went on for like 10 years. And finally, this studio called and they said, we're going to, after 5 times, we were like, so they called and we were a little jaded and said, sure, her, and they wanted all these
Fine.
things. They wanted to go to this race and do this and do that. And, of course we did interact with them, but we just thought, this is never going to happen, because for some reason it just kept going from studio to studio to studio, which apparently is very common. But not being in that world, we didn't know that. And finally they called and they said, we'd like to rent the track. And we're like, why? And they said, well, we want to make the movie at the facility of where the story takes place. So they rented the track for 3 days, and we was in the summer. It was like 18-hour days, and they worked from sunrise to sunset, and they actually made the story, brought the story to the big screen. But it was a real surprise to us, because after 5 times of getting our hopes up and then being disappointed, we just thought that would happen again. And then it became very real when they rented the racetrack.
We had Don and I had a private showing, and which was really good, because when they hit the lights and the movie was over, we were blubbering blobs of tears.
We were not ready.
It was just nice to have some quiet time to ourselves to kind of think about what we had just seen, because so much of it was about us and our family, and so
our dog.
Wonderful experience. We learned a lot about what it takes to get a book to the big screen. A lot of politics involved in it, but yeah, wonderful experience.
I think it was also hard for Garth to see the movie. You write something and then you see it, and you have, I think, having spent time with him, then the second and third showings, we were with him, and, I think he was like us, you're just not prepared. For us, it was emotional. For him, I think it was more, he had a vision in his head, and it was just, it's different. It's kind of an interesting experience. And I'm really glad we had the opportunity to see it ourselves first, because it was so much of it was so personal that we were able to have our emotions, just the two of us. They turned the lights on. We're like, keep the lights off, please. So we were really glad, because then the second time we saw it was with 400 of our invited friends in Seattle that we invited. And we were much more prepared of how to deal with, seeing it on the big screen.
When was the last time you watched it?
Oh, I haven't seen it for a while. We keep thinking we keep thinking it's just a matter of time. I don't think we've seen it for a year or so.
But I can tell you, all the quotes in there I hear every day.
Okay. All right.
Because all the quotes from Enzo and about racing are Don. And so he's, I refer to them as Donisms, because he just has some things he says that are they're just so iconic. They're so Don, and they're in the book. Garth did a really good job when he was, at the race school, listening and taking notes and tape recording. He put a lot of those things in the story. So even though I haven't seen the movie or read the book recently, I get to hear a lot of the things a lot. And that makes me really happy.
All that stuff is true. The dog riding in the truck, Garth didn't believe that one day. He said, the dog doesn't lean into the turns. He doesn't like to go out on the racetrack. I said, you really, Garth? Get in the truck. So Garth got up in the passenger seat of the truck, and Enzo of those days, sat there and looked at him. I said, Garth, you're in his seat. You need to get in the back seat. The dog rides in the front seat. So, yeah. So all of that's true. I mean, that dog loved to go out on the racetrack, and he would literally lean into the turns to balance himself.
He was a racer dog.
He was a racer dog.
His name actually was Auto, A-U-T-O, but so many people, when they hear the word auto, like for our business, it makes sense, A-U-T-O. But for 95% of the world, auto would be O-T-T-O. So Garth used Enzo, which is in reference to Enzo Ferrari. So now we have an Enzo. This is a 3rd or 4th generation dog. So we finally, our daughter said, we've had all car names for our dogs. We need to name this one Enzo. So we have Enzo, and he is a great dog.
Yeah, we've always had dogs linked to the school. If you follow the history of the school, you'll always see dogs in the group photos and stuff like that.
Lexi commented that she was greeted by the dog.
No, it was obviously she is a dog lover because she, we were quite anxious to meet her and greet her, and boy, she needed her dog time first.
Yeah, she says he was great. she was really really excited. I have a friend who has a Bernese Mountain Dog named Otto, and he went so far as to buy a Jeep Grand Wagoneer
I don't see anything wrong with that.
To carry and the he calls it the Otto wagon. Otto is Otto, and he has another burner named Fritz, who I have Fritz's brother sleeping over here. He's been remarkably quiet this entire time. They're a year old now, and
I think dogs being at a racetrack, people come in pretty amped up or pretty scared. And just seeing the two dogs, now we have a second one because we do, and her name is Lola. There's a story after her name, Lola Chassis, Racing Chassis, but Lola and Enzo, people come in, they drive up, and the minute they see them and the dogs want to be petted and loved and hugged, it really breaks the ice. And I feel like they're really good therapy dogs for just letting people know that this is a good place.
So how'd you acclimate them to the track? I mean, did they take to the
Wasn't a problem.
Wasn't a problem?
Especially Otto, the first dog. Oh my gosh. Otto was a race dog. And we say that because when Dawn would turn the truck on, we have a school vehicle that is a Toyota Tundra.
Okay.
I mean, the minute he hears that car start, he's already at the door, ready to go in the car. All Dawn has to do is, on any of our dogs, open up, the door, they jump in, and they can't wait to go. They love it there. And
they get lots of attention, and treats, and some of our clients they come strictly to see them. So no, they're fine. The noise doesn't bother them. Obviously, when we're active, they're on their chains. They're never loose.
Right.
But they get to go for their morning walk. And Otto, when we would first get there in the morning, we had our routine down because I would open the gate to the truck, and that's when he would get out and he'd stand by the truck, and I'd race the motor, rev the motor up, and then he and I would race into it every morning.
Really?
Every morning. He loved to race that truck.
He was the only one. He's the only one.
And sometimes he would, cut a red light. He'd shoot ahead too early, and I'd shake my head, and then he'd come back walking back. Wait. Great fun. Great memories of the dogs.
That's wonderful. All right. As we wrap this up, I got a couple more things. I know we're leaving out a bunch, which is the nature of the show, which will make sure people know where to go to find out more. But I got to ask about this because this sounds kind of cool. Track taxi thrill ride.
We don't allow students giving rides out there. It's just my own industry standards and insurance and all that. So if somebody feels the need to experience the racetrack, a unique life's experience, then we have the track taxi, and we'll give them 2 or 3 laps. So yeah.
What type of car is it? Is there a specific car for this right now?
Well, we've had a lot of track taxis. BMW track taxis, M3s were the weapon of choice for a number of years. We're kind of in between taxis right now. We're waiting for Toyota wants us to have one of the new Supras, one of the GR Supras. So that'll probably be the next track taxi, but tough to get right now. Tough to get. Mm-hmm. So right now we just use one of the FRSs to one of the GR86s to give people rides. Anything will do, but certainly the M3s and the Supra.
Walk me through. What would one expect if they signed up to go on this ride? You said 3 laps around the track. How fast are we going? What are you going to do?
Well, we kind of watch, how comfortable people are.
Sure.
Hand signals, this means I'm having fun. This means I'm not having fun, because you don't want somebody stuck there uncomfortable, right?
So this means faster. This means faster.
There you go.
Okay.
But if they're comfortable, if they're comfortable, we will, see speed certainly in excess of 100 miles an hour on the front straightaway. But it's in the turns that is their experience,
Right.
watching the car navigate the turns. But giving rides is a lot of responsibility, right? So you're just always leaving a lot on the table everywhere,
Right.
so that they have a unique, thrilling experience, but they're safe.
And a couple things about the thrill ride is they're actually, for most of them, they've never sat in a purpose-built race seat with harnesses. So it's not
Right.
just like a regular car seat with a seat belt, but it's a 5-point harness.
Right.
So now they're sitting in a very tight race seat. They've got a very special seat belt that's called a 5-point harness. They've got a helmet on, which for a lot of people, that's a very foreign, feeling of having something kind of claustrophobic. And the race sedans are equipped to go racing, so they have a roll cage. So they're not like, there's no back seat. So it's a different type of vehicle. And so it's really exciting for them because they sit down and they go for a high speed thrill ride in a car that's used for racing. And usually they get out and they can't stop laughing because like they're relieved. Like just a wave of emotions. You don't even know where you're at. That was fun. That was scary. That was thrilling. I want to do it. Oh my God, I'm still alive. So it is a lot of fun.
So how many people after they go on one of these sign up to take a class? I mean, does that inspire people?
It really does.
I was going to say, to me, it seems like that would be like like the free samples at Costco. Here, come and try this.
It's kind of like taking the puppy to the petting room and then hand it back to the cashiers. You're not going to do that.
Yeah.
One of the challenges we have when you start hearing of these speeds of 125, 130, 140 miles an hour, we have a tendency to kind of try to equate that to driving our street car on 405. It's not the same. You're strapped in there so tight. You've got so much rubber on the ground. The car is so rock solid, and everybody's going in the same direction. So there's really and the cars get up to those speeds so fast. There's really no equation between our street car and a true race car.
Well, one of the things that you guys emphasize a lot is that you offer a lot of, driver training stuff. It's not just necessarily racing. It's becoming a confident, competent driver. Even though, you're called ProFormance Racing School, there's more. Like, to me, it's a completely different thing. You're teaching teens how to drive. You're teaching people how to be aware of what they're doing with the wheel. And I think that's something that we'll reference Alexia again. I think that was her big takeaway. Yeah, she had fun. She went fast. She thought it was great fun. But the thing that came out of her mouth when I talked to her afterwards was like, I learned how to be, not that she learned, not like it's a completed process, but she learned how to be a better driver. That's the thing I think that I find really intriguing. Because how many of your people, I guess, two-part question. So you have a lot of teens come out here. First off, I think that's awesome that you're doing that. Number two, though, you do teach people how to become race car drivers, but how many of your percentage-wise of your attendees are actually racing?
Well, I would say less than 20% of the people who sport drive, and that's the term, sport recreational driving.
Okay.
Actually go racing. I mean, there is a path from recreational sport driving on into competition, but we tell everybody every day, don't for 1 minute think that in this recreation of sport high performance driving, we're not making better street drivers out there. They're using the most elevated levels of concentration, the most advanced vision skills, and they're learning about their car and having fun doing it.
Right. I think that's amazing.
You mentioned teens. In 2020, our daughter being one, 2020, she was hit with the COVID closure. So she was a senior in high school.
Okay.
And so as a senior in high school, she missed her 18th birthday. She missed her prom. She missed her graduation. She was, that group of kids. And ProFormance was closed for 3 months during that time. And when we reopened, our parents, our clients that had kids of graduation, either high school or college, they were unable to send them to Disneyland or Mexico or wherever, Hawaii. So that year of 2020 in June, we got this influx of 18-year-olds and 21-year-olds whose parents are our clients, but they sent their kids because they were unable to do anything for graduation. So that summer was the summer of youth, which is very unusual because this is an expensive sport. And our daughter's generation, they are not necessarily really into cars and getting their license at 16 or 18, like we were when we were 16 and 18. Right. And we had a lot of reluctant teens show up in 2020 that didn't want to be there. But after they showed up, they did something that was magical. They did something called social media. And that summer, after they took the one-day school, they went out on their social media and told all their friends about their experience. And 2020, 2021, 22 has been an explosion of youth driving with us, really? Which was unusual before COVID because they had other sports, and this is an expensive sport. And the reason I bring that up is you mentioned teen drivers. We have a segment of our drivers that are under 18 that are racing. We just licensed we've licensed many drivers under 18 to go racing, but we just licensed 2 15-year-old girls for racing licenses that are actually going into amateur racing. So we do offer from, like you said, from teens learning basic street survival skills, all the way to amateur racing, all the way to professional racing. So you can start in one place and end up in another. And a lot of times that happens, but teens have been a huge part of our business in the last few years.
I always think it's funny, to be licensed, in Washington State, you got to be 16 to drive a car, but yet you can be licensed to race younger than that. That's interesting to me. One last question about the track, or about your school. So you've licensed 15-year-olds. Who's the oldest driver that's competing out there? Is there anybody? What's the age of the?
We're both smiling. We have an amazing client. I think he's 84. He drives with us at least 2 or 3 times a month. And he drives, to make sure, I think this is correct, a GT2 Club Sport Porsche. Is that right, John?
Correct.
And he's the fastest person on our track. He has been driving with us for 25 years, maybe. Mm-hmm. But he also was a motorcycle racer prior to his time with us. So he was a racer, but he is 84 years old. And what keeps him young and healthy and active and mentally and physically alert is he drives with us 2 or 3 times a month. It's why he, it's essential for him.
He's a real special, very special guy. Loves the dogs. The dogs love him, mainly because he always has a little treat for him in his driver's suit pocket. But just we love Jerry. I mean, he's just got such a zest for life. He showed me a picture of him a little while ago of him on his race bike, on motorcycle, dragging one knee. That was really cool.
At 84?
He hasn't raced since he was 65.
Oh.
He's got this bike laid down just like this with one knee on the ground at 65 years of age.
But he is actually, anytime he shows up now, I know he has a fast car, but he is the fastest person out there on most days that we're active. And we love having him out there. So yeah, 84 years old.
Okay. So
15 all the way to 84.
So, 7 decades. When you say he's the fastest out there, what's he completing a lap in? How long is it? What's it take to do a lap?
Well, I think, the fastest thing I've ever seen get around that racetrack is, maybe a minute 16. But Jerry's about 126, 127 in that car. That's moving right along. A 16 is a purpose-built sports racing car with a lot of downforce on slicks. So
that's
yeah, he's moving right along.
That's moving very, very, very quickly. Okay, so now comes the stock questions I ask everybody. Number one, what didn't we ask you that we should have?
Boy, I think we covered it all. I mean, I think we gave everyone a good idea of, the broad spectrum of our curriculum.
Okay. Number two. Go ahead.
I have got one. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, I can't do this, or this is something that scares me, on any given day, either in person or on the computer, someone will say to me, why did I wait so long? This was so much fun. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I've always wanted to do this, or I'm never going to do this, allow yourself to try something new. You will be shocked, surprised at the experience, from how you start like Lexi to being probably scared, overwhelmed, not sure what you've signed up for, to driving away empowered, a proactive, better driver. And if you never come back to us, you will know you did it. And that's empowering. Trying something new that's a little scary, outside of your comfort zone, it gives you rewards in other places in your life of something that's hard that you're experiencing. You kind of can draw on this experience and say, if I can do that with ProFormance, I can solve this, or I have some skills maybe that I didn't have before, that I can take this, break it down, and actually get through it.
Okay. Next question. I ask this question of every single guest. Where's a good place to get coffee? In your case, near the track.
Oh, near the track. Oh, that's tough.
Well, I have my coffee brought to me, see, so I can't, I really can't. I don't know where the coffee comes from. All I know, it is very good, and the best part of it is it's delivered by a beautiful blonde. So I really can't,
That's probably the best answer ever.
I thought so.
All right.
We love coffee. That's for sure.
All right. When you're not at the track, what do you guys like to do for fun?
We love to travel. We love to travel, and we spend money and time we don't have trying to see as much of the world as we can, and that we love doing.
Our honeymoon, 30 some years ago, we went to Spa, which is a racetrack in Belgium. They have a F1 race there. So that was our first F1 race together on our honeymoon 31 years ago. And when we were sitting there, we said to ourselves, this is pretty cool. We're pretty poor, but could you grab that? Sorry, we apologize for the phone. We thought we had unplugged it. But we had made this pact to ourselves that we wanted to go to every F1 race that we could go to. We didn't have to necessarily see the F1 race, but we wanted to go to every country that an F1 race happened to be at. And lucky for us, F1 keeps adding new races, so that gives us more places that we get to go to. But last year we went to Singapore, and Singapore has the F1 night race. And we were able to walk that circuit many times and really enjoy that. Not during the F1 race, but just being there. So we love to travel. We love going to racetracks. We love being able to see where F1 races or where IndyCar races, or where Don races. We've been lucky, to see a lot of the world because of his racing. So if we're not working at the racetrack, we are traveling, and we just love it.
All right. My last question, very important. Both have to answer the question. There are no wrong answers, but I do expect an explanation. Cake or pie, and why?
Can we say both? That's the first thing that I thought, and everyone's like, "What?" And dessert first. That works for me.
No, I'm sorry. It's cake.
Cake or pie?
Or pie.
Cake.
Why?
Why?
Well, because It just tastes better. I mean, there's no such thing as a carrot cake pie. There's carrot cake cake. It has to be carrot cake.
So you like carrot cake?
Carrot cake
is your choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There's no wrong answer here. Well, there is one for me. There's one wrong answer, but that wasn't it. So
it's probably rhubarb.
But I actually like rhubarb.
Yeah, you like rhubarb too, don't you, Don? I would say cake because you've got the cake, and then you've got. So I always have stories, right? So my daughter would always eat the frosting, and I would always eat the cake. So it was a perfect match.
Okay. We will. So actually, there's one last thing. Where can people find you out online? They want to know more about the school. They want to know more about you. Where do you want them to go? Where's a good place?
ProFormance Racing School, just like the business name. I know it's long, but it's worth spelling out. It's ProFormance, ProFormanceRacingSchool.com. That's where you can find us. Our racetrack is at Pacific Raceways in Kent, Washington. Really want you to think about, if you are listening to this, you can do this. I did this 5 years ago, my first driving day, and I keep going back. So we have a lot of people out there that are the same, and for them, I mean, it's their happy place. And I think that if you give it a try, you'll definitely drive away with a smile on your face. ProFormance Racing School.
All right.
.com.
Thanks for the time, young man.
Thank you for the time.
Young man.
There you are. Yeah.
Oh, no. Thank you both so much. This was a lot of fun.
That was fun.
Hope you enjoyed the show. You can reach me on Twitter at ExploreWaState. I'd love to hear your comments. You can also visit our website at explorewashingtonstate.com. If you know anyone who would like the show, it'd be amazing if you'd share the show with them. This is the biggest way that we grow this show. Good old word of mouth. Glad you were here with me today, and I hope to have you listening to the next episode. See you then.